by Mecha Boss and Nancy.
It's time. It's time. It's time. I know it's time. The generation for reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Reparation. Right now, reparation. Especially as you know it's due. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Reparations for building this nation. Lynching and burning castration. Sell children, family separation. Right now, time for reparation. Millions of slave ships landed, whipped, chained, and branded. 300 years of free labor. We ain't asking for no favor. Reparation. Time to pay. Right now, time for reparation. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Reparations for reconstruction. Red summers of destruction. Segregation, Jim Crow corruption. Right now, time for reparation. Reparations for the Constitution. Said we were 3/5 human. Reparations are overdue. 40 acres ain't no new. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Time for reparation. Time for reparation. Right now, time for reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right now, reparation. Pay up, time to pay up. Right
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you underground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity?
Oh, there we go. Mike was muted, and so you can hear me now. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Pleased to be here and pleased to have you along Tuesday. One of the highlights of my week, connecting with you here on KFAI. This is a wonderful station. It's a wonderful asset and resource for our community. And I love it because it means that it gives me a chance to have an intimate conversation with one or two or three friends or more. They could be here, they could be anywhere around the world, but to have that conversation shared with hundreds of thousands here on KFAI in our radio audience and online worldwide at kfai.org. And I believe that we want to remind the listeners to support the station during our current pledge drive. And we'll be sharing information through the course of the program, letting you know what you can do to be a member or simply to be a financial supporter of this work, this important mission, KFAI. We used to call it a different radio station every hour, and that was so real and so rich because at any moment you could be hearing Oromo, Somali, hearing Hmong, hearing Spanish, hearing English, and different languages from around the world, different communities that are all part of making the diversity a reality here in Minnesota. Well, today I want to continue a conversation I started last week, not on this program, but on our Wednesday business-focused podcast. But it's a conversation about the Upper Harbor development in North Minneapolis. And it's an important, I think, reality changing, improving development envisioned for the old Upper Harbor Terminal in North Minneapolis. I'm pleased to have Brandon Champeau, who is a vice president at United Properties, the developer, and Dana Frank, who is an entrepreneur and an artist, I think, in her own right, who leads the First Avenue organization and the suite of entertainment assets here in Twin Cities. Recognizing my colleague Brenda Lau Gray. Brenda, good to see you, and jump in at any time to help move this conversation along. But for our audiences today, Brandon, let's start with Upper Harbor Terminal 101. Let's give those who might not be familiar with what this endeavor is a picture of what we're planning, what you are planning, what the city of Minneapolis is planning, and what they've described as an equity centered project for North Minneapolis.
Sure. Can you hear me, Al?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to be on here again and to continue the conversation. So Upper Harbor 101, it's Upper Harbor is a 48-acre site. It's about a mile of riverfront, just about 2 miles out of downtown Minneapolis, along the Mississippi River. Bordered by the Mississippi River to the east and the North Minneapolis neighborhoods to the west. This is a site that Dana and I and now other partners who are joining us, including Devin George, have been working on for many years, working on the redevelopment planning for the project, and have, especially over the last 3 years now, conducted well over 100 community meetings, public community meetings with this project. And so this is something that's truly been a collaborative planning process to get to the point that we're at right now. And as a quick overview of the 48 acres and what the intent to the future of the site will be, just under half of it, about 20 acres, will be a new riverfront park, and that will be developed by the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. It'll, that's really the centerpiece in many ways of what's going to happen here, because it'll reconnect this site to the river. Right now, the site is very industrial in nature, not really welcoming to the river in any means, and so that will certainly change that. And then, as far as the development of the site, the vertical development of the projects, really, it's kind of broken up into three different land uses. There'll be housing, which is primarily located on the north end, will be primarily located on the north end of the site, and will include, in phase 1, 2 affordable housing projects, a future senior project on the river that will also have affordability, and then potentially a higher density market rate project in the future on a site that is right at the corner of Dowling and Interstate 94. And then, so housing is one component of it. Community space, and really this is public gathering space, commercial spaces, places that the public will be able to access makes up the other major land use that we'll be developing here, and that includes Dana's, the First Avenue led Community Performing Arts Center, and which is just going to be a phenomenal anchor for this project, and bring so many people here to celebrate the site, to listen to music. I think it's going to spark a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to get product in front of people that they would never typically get in front of, and so we're excited about what the Performing Arts Center is going to bring in multiple levels to the site. We are also working on a community health and wellness center, or health and wellness hub, that Devin's team at Building Blocks is leading right now. And that as well will be a major community anchor here, bringing people in for preventative health services, for after school programming, for recreation, tournaments, things like that. So again, another place of gathering. And then the commercial spaces, we really consider those to be community spaces. The ground floor of some of these buildings will have places for restaurants, or retail services and things. And so that makes up kind of the second major land use of the site. And then the third is what we're calling job space. And that is primarily located on the southern end of the site, and will include future manufacturing space, potentially production manufacturing space, as well as we are talking to a potential group about a food, and I'll call it kind of a riverfront destination that would include local food production, community space for gathering, incubators and accelerators, potentially for Black and brown chefs and entrepreneurs. And so a place though that will be primarily focused on incubating, accelerating entrepreneurs, and creating jobs. That's really the end. That's really the primary focus of that space. So.
You mentioned Devin George and his company, Building Blocks. Talk about that. He's a celebrated North Side icon, but share his involvement and the contribution that he makes to your team and to this initiative.
Yeah, sure. And really, I mean, before I mention Devin, I'm just going to go back a little bit further. When we applied to be the developer on this project in partnership with Dana, we were also at the time, this is back in 2016, we were also partnered up with Thor Companies, which is was a North Minneapolis primarily construction company, but was really attempting to expand into development and design and engineering in a big way. And so the three of us, First Avenue, United Properties, and Thor, were the development team on this project for the first 2+ years, and then Thor had some financial issues and has ultimately went bankrupt. And so from that moment, I mean, we were really kind of looking for another hyper local partner, I'll say. I mean, we're both First Avenue and United Properties are both local Twin Cities companies, but we really wanted a partner who had deeper connection to the North Minneapolis neighborhoods, and somebody that the community would see as a trusted partner. And we were introduced to Devin by a few community members in late 2019, early 2020, and from there, really the conversation kind of started with Devin having interest in this health and wellness hub. But the more we got to learn about his affordable housing business, and saw how he runs and operates these properties, heard about his the vision that he has for investing in North Minneapolis, we started expanding that conversation to include the housing, and have really for the last year and a half now been kind of walking hand in hand on that piece. So our intent is to partner with Devin on the affordable housing, and I would consider him a market leader in this, in the way that he like I said, operates these properties. And then Devin will also be taking the lead on this community health and wellness hub, and has already been developing some fairly we hope significant future partnerships with local organizations that want to be a part of that as well.
So Devin's personal story, you know it, his athletic story?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Talk about Devin. I mean, what I can tell you is that I drive by these two beautiful, massive residential developments he's created on the corner of Penn Avenue and Golden Valley. And both corners and that intersection was a troubled, both corners, all four corners are really lacking. Three of them are empty now. There's still a grocery store and a church on one part. But the corner had been a sort of a blight area and a dangerous area, and it's still in transition. It's not over because it's in the middle of an area that is kind of embattled right now in North Minneapolis, Golden Valley and Penn, in fact. Anyway, I won't dwell on the tragedies that have happened there, but what he has done is brought development as a solution and residential opportunity as a solution and commercial activity. So on both the southwest and northwest corners, huge city block wide residential and retail developments have taken place, and they're up and running right now. And I'm telling you, it's making a world of difference on the community itself, but also in the attitude of how the community sees itself. And so vitality comes from the kind of presence that he's creating right there on Golden Valley and Penn Avenue in North Minneapolis. But he's a celebrated Northside athlete. Talk about him if you would.
Yeah. Well, he's best known as a star at Augsburg College here locally, and then went on to get drafted by the LA Lakers. I want to say in maybe 1990. I can't remember, maybe 1999 or 2000. But then with them, that was right when Kobe and Shaq were kind of at the peak of, certainly the peak of their career together. And they won a number of championships together. Devin was part of those teams. And so, he brings that competitive spirit as well as, just a tenacity to kind of, want to do the right thing now with a focus on his new career as a real estate developer and owner and really operator. I mean, a lot of real estate developers build buildings and sell them right away and kind of move on to the next thing, and that's how a lot of companies keep going. But Devin takes a very long-term view of what he develops, and I mean, the biggest thing I was impressed with as I got to know him was how he incorporates building blocks, his nonprofit, into his business, and how he, really creates a community for his residents. And, that's through programming, especially with a big focus on after school programming for kids, providing meals for families, just the way that he interacts with, the residents and things. So, we're really excited about what he brings to the team, and certainly, I think we heard from multiple community members that it just gives them more comfort too, knowing that someone like Devin's on our team. And so it's been, a mutually beneficial relationship, but we're excited about a future of investing with Devin, even beyond this project, and see some real synergies with where, a larger company like United Properties and a growing company like Devin's can really work well together. So I think there'll be more than just this in the future.
Fantastic. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane, my guest. We're talking via Zoom or Zoom technology. My guests are Brandon Champeau, who's with United Properties, the principal developer of the Northside project, the Upper River Harbor Terminal project, a massive undertaking to revitalize and reimagine quality of life, engagement, civic engagement, education, health, right in North Minneapolis along a mile or so of river space that is really amazing. Also, Dana Frank, a partner in it. She is the developer who is part of leads the First Avenue suite of businesses. Dana, good afternoon. Good to see you again. And you know, I just have to always think of First Avenue as the icon that the entire world recognizes. You can put up your building image anywhere on the planet, and people will know what it stands for. It stands for innovation, for quality, for youth vitality, and for boldness in introducing music ideas, some of which are untested and unknown, but emerge as new standards in the world of musical creativity. Welcome to the program once again, Dana.
Thanks. I'm going to quote you on that and just hold that in my heart forever. Thank you.
Well, you're certainly welcome because it's true. And thank you for being a part of this project. I want to let people get the Entertainment 101 from you, just as Brandon has given an idea of how this development emerged from the developer's point of view, from your position as a promoter, entrepreneur, and as an artist. How has this project emerged, and how do you see yourself being part of the leadership and the steering of this opportunity?
Yeah, we were introduced to the project, around 2016, when the park board had these, I can't remember, qualities of success, and one thing they were looking for was a destination, because the site is in this really, it's in a great location, but it certainly has its challenges. It's divided from the community by the freeway. It's right on the river. There's, it's heavy industry on kind of either sides of it. And so it was determined that there's no real natural reason for people to go to the site. And so you needed a destination to provide like all the assets and the amenities that the neighborhood wants, the economic revitalization and, a reason that people would want to live there. There had to be, again, a destination or like a reason for people to go to the site. And so, in Minneapolis, we love music, and nothing kind of drives people quite like music does. And so it seemed like a very natural, a natural destination experience for this site. And at the same time, Minneapolis, St. Paul, we're the only metropolitan area without an outdoor amphitheater. Literally every single, Atlanta has 3, Denver has 4, Portland has 2, cities much smaller than us have these economic drivers. And so we said, well, if Minneapolis, not even Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area, if we're going to get one, why not put it in a place where you can drive that economic activity towards a community that needs it the most? So it seemed like a really a well-rounded project that fit together.
And, we don't have one because people don't miss it because we haven't had it, right? But the proposition is once we get it, we'll see what we've been missing and see how we can benefit year round in doing an amphitheater or an outdoor venue. Talk about that, because some people might have difficulty imagining what do you do after the summer concert scene ends.
No, it's interesting. So, people, people from the city will drive out to Apple Valley to go to the shows at the zoo that, it's a 1,500 capacity, but they get, bands that are way bigger because there's nowhere else. Or you got to go out to Somerset, Wisconsin, or out to the casinos. And so often in, 2010 through 2014, we heard like, why can't we have this, closer by? Why can't I ride my bike here? And so then we started doing concerts at Halls Island. We were originally going to do them at Parade, got moved to Halls Island, and the response was like unbelievable. In fact, we had an event at Canterbury out in Shakopee that we then moved to Halls Island, and, ticket sales doubled because people just want to have this experience where in a neighborhood that's close by. And so, people always assumed we didn't have one because of the weather, but we all know, Minnesotans are hardy. We've all been to those, the fair and either 105-degree heat or rain. And, we had a concert at Halls Island and it was raining and every single person still showed up. So Minnesotans are hardy, but in the winter, we also love our outdoors activity. So, we're working with a design committee right now in terms of what kind of winter programming could be, and working with hopefully when the community entity is selected to see how the space can be most beneficial in a 4-season environment.
Take a minute, Dana Frank, if you would, and talk about the network of entertainment venues that you've stitched together as an entrepreneur. You've got a footprint or a shadow over a fairly wide slice of entertainment opportunity in Twin Cities. And I think that's significant that you have both the vision and the capacity to bring all these different venues forward simultaneously for the benefit of the consumer and for the people that have the jobs, and for the entertainers who want to connect with audiences who want to be entertained. So take a minute and do some bragging about the elements of the First Avenue, business collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to help artists at every level of their career. So, when I started at First Ave, we had the First Avenue main room, the home of Prince and Purple Rain, about a 1,500 capacity, the one that it had dance nights, and also, every kid dreamed of playing when they made it big. And then we also had the neighboring club, the 250 capacity 7th Street Entry, which is like, Prince played one of his first shows there, but also Nirvana's first show in town, Garbage, The Replacements. Billie Eilish was there 3 years ago on her, kind of debut tour in the country. So that's kind of the room where if you're, really up on your new music, or you're just trying to discover like the newest local bands, that's kind of a hangout room. And then we expanded. We were doing a bunch of shows at the Turf Club in Midway St. Paul, and we could get a little frustrated because there were things we wanted to fix about the room. When I first walked into the bathrooms, like the stalls were so tight you couldn't close. They didn't have air conditioning, so the summer it got really uncomfortable. So, when you just are promoting shows, you can't fix up a building. So we purchased the property, fixed it up, reopened that in 2014, and that at about 375 capacity. Just reopened with Dessa and the Purple Funk Explosion, and really great. We do about 250 to 300 shows a year at the Turf Club, and then so in between that 250 and the main room, we took over the operations of the Fine Line a couple of years ago. We were doing the booking, but the same thing where the person who was leasing it didn't want to lease it anymore, and we took it over. So that's a nice little jumping off place. And then we opened the Palace in downtown St. Paul, which is a 2,500 capacity, which we did with the city, very similar to Upper Harbor, in a public-private partnership where the city owns the land and the building, built out the theater, and we took over the operations. And that's kind of like the step up after the main room. When you made it, you're headlining. A lot of times bands they don't want to go to the arena. It feels like a little too impersonal. They still want that club show, but they can sell more tickets than the main room. Mm-hmm. And then we also bought the Fitzgerald Theater, the 1,000-seat historic theater. So that does a lot of, like, we have Max and Val and Gregory Porter and, the shows with the audience that wants to sit down and have that more like traditional theatrical, less nightclub, more theater experience. So so our goal is just, if anyone wants to play Minneapolis, they can call First Avenue and we can find exactly the right room and the perfect experience for them, no matter where they are in their career.
So you've got a palette of opportunity, right? And if you are in one vein of artistic expression or another, there's a place to connect and to find your audience, and for your audiences to find you. And so how do you see all that playing into what you think you'll be offering up at the Upper Harbor? And is there a name for the project, for the entertainment project yet? How is that developing? How will you come up with branding for that as you develop?
Still TBD. We'll work with the community and figure out the absolute perfect name for it. And if it's Upper Harbor, it's Upper Harbor. And if it's, whatever else it might be, absolutely. So I think, our strength is that we know this music community and we know what this music scene needs. So, we have a history. We don't, kind of open new venues and compete with existing venues. All the venues that we operate were existing before us. So it's not like we would come in and build a competitor to another locally owned operator that's like already doing their thing and having a great, go just for the sake of creating competition. And so that's, we know where the holes are in this market. And without a doubt, an amphitheater is the kind of the only hole left that we need to fill before music. Minneapolis, St. Paul is like absolutely the best city in the world to come and listen and experience live music.
Do you think Minneapolis can develop another period of energetic output in music that we experienced with Prince and The Time and Maserati, all of those sort of broke out at the same time. Flight Time, those soul bands and R&B bands emerged out of one kind of wave of phenomenal musical energy. And like besides you all downtown, there was a place on 13th and Nicollet that was doing soul bands. Is it the Flame that was on 13th and Nicollet? Do you remember that place at all? I can't remember. But there were places like the private clubs like the Nakarima over on 4th Avenue in South Minneapolis, like a bottle club that Prince and those guys played at. Do you see our community bubbling like that again in the soul music area? I know we have always been leading in the alt music, in the alternative music, punk rock music. And at one point in time, we had a fairly vibrant jazz scene that comes and goes. But what do you see as the future? What's going to happen in music and creativity as we move forward in your mind, Dana Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's unbelievable about the Minneapolis music scene is it's consistently good. I mean, there's always amazing local bands. I mean, I don't know if the world will see another Prince, much less Minneapolis, right? It's that, and all the people that Prince brought up with him, and obviously Jimmy Jam and Terry, like just the unbelievable talent of that era. But I don't see why we wouldn't. I mean, all the ingredients are here, and everyone from the Peterson family and the Steels and Javante Patter, like there's unbelievable talent. I think who breaks out and who doesn't is a matter of luck and relationships, and sometimes it's more magical than it is talent. But what is so special about this scene here is that every night of the week you can go and see an unbelievable local band that has just as much talent as anyone in the country.
Okay. Brandon, as a development, how big is this project compared to other projects that you've done or that your company, United Properties, has undertaken? Where does this fit in your portfolio of development projects?
Yeah, I would say from there's a couple of different ways we look at projects like this. We do a lot of just single tenant projects. It might be one industrial building or one senior housing project. We do large office projects like the Gateway Tower downtown, which is rising at the corner of Hennepin, Nicollet, and Washington, and then we do have a rich history of tackling what we call kind of large horizontal mixed use projects. And in the past, Centennial Lakes, that whole area of Edina, was once a gravel pit that well before my time here, but that has gone on to become a major part of the Edina community, and I think a major catalyst for a lot of the development that's happened in that area. And then Upper Harbor, certainly from just a horizontal mixed use perspective, 48 acres, 8 or 9 kind of projects, certainly ranks as one of the larger projects that we've ever done. And then I would say from a complexity perspective, other developers here may have their own idea of what was hard, but this has been certainly one of the most challenging projects. I mean, we're going on 5 years of being involved in this, and normally at 5 years, if I'm not standing in something brand new by that point, we're told we can't. We got to move on to something else.
You have to get a new job somewhere,
or go get a new job if there's something that's not working. But this is one that we recognized, especially over the last couple of years, just couldn't be rushed and needed more time and really needed us to spend more time listening and less time, trying to impose a vision, which is a lot of times what developers do. And, there's a lot of times where we get, pats on the back and win awards and whatnot for it. But in this case, certainly we didn't recognize it going in, recognize it certainly after a couple of years of engagement here that to get this one right, we have to do much more listening and kind of slow down and really figure out what's the right thing to do here. And so, from that perspective, it's been, probably one of the largest or, the largest project that we're trying to tackle as a company.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane here live on KFAI and live to social media, Facebook Live through the McFarlane Media Network, McFarlane Media Dashboard, and also through Black Press USA, reaching out around the world. We're glad to have this. I'm so proud to be a part of KFAI, and I want to mention to our viewers and listeners that this work we do is important. We bring community together. We call it creating robust conversations. This certainly ranks as one, talking about a major reimagining of a major part of the city of Minneapolis. And the ideas we're discussing, though they're local, have larger significance. They're part of how the country, how the community moves forward and reinvents itself. And we believe that what is being discussed and argued and challenged and applied or attempted here creates a blueprint for solutions elsewhere around the country. And I think that we are particularly suited in Minneapolis to take that role of leadership. Brenda, you and I sent a note back and forth. You sent one to me after the last conversation we had with Brandon and with Dana. And I think you made reference to a project in San Francisco, and I think you did anyway, but what was your question and your concept? You were asking if they had been aware of a development project in San Francisco that maybe particularly was able to do some successes in the area of equity and diversity. Turn your mic on, Brenda, and jump in here.
I think it was LA and Beverly Center, and Brendan might be familiar with it, but I had gotten an email from a friend and they had watched the show and they said that it was successful because of the way they laid it out with the escalators and just I don't know. I think the grid of the whole thing, and it has just been an enormous success. So I think that was just something that came to me.
Mm-hmm. And so the question, Brandon and Dana, is how do you make your planning, in your planning, look at or reference other projects that are happening around the country, around the world? What's influenced you in how you approach this activity?
It's a good question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yeah, we've spent a lot of time. We've toured a number of projects. We've talked to other developers. We brought some of those developers actually onto our team as advisors through this process. And just to name a few, the 11th Street Bridge project in Washington, D.C. that we toured with a number of people, actually, number of community representatives, as well as other Twin Cities-based organizations to see how they pulled that together. But that's the creation of an old bridge that was decommissioned with a new bridge, and it was decommissioned because of a new bridge being constructed. And there's a nonprofit there that's working to really make the old 11th Street Bridge a true, literal, physical, as well as symbolic connection to, and the neighborhood's going to escape me now. Dana, do you remember the neighborhood on the, there's two primary neighborhoods that
Anacondia?
Yeah, yep.
Anacostia.
Yep. And to which, shares, demographically speaking, shares a lot of similarities to North Minneapolis demographics, and have the exact same concerns. Is this bridge going to accelerate displacement, gentrification? So we met with them and really studied that project to see how they are pulling that together and how they're attempting to achieve community goals. Just to name a few others, the Pullman project, Pullman redevelopment on the southern end of Chicago, is one that we looked at as it's one that U.S. Bank was really involved with and helped launch some CDCs down there and create some community spaces. They have a community health and wellness hub as well. They've developed a number of job production type of spaces. And then one that we really spent a lot of time getting to know is a project called the Highlander in Omaha. And that was led by a guy named Othello Meadows, who we actually brought on the team as a development advisor. And, here again, North Omaha, which I'd never been there, shares a lot of, similar demographic characteristics, similar, I would say, trauma experience, traumatic experiences as North Minneapolis. There was, an interstate that cut through the neighborhood. There's a lot of heavy industry and contamination, contaminated sites that have been zoned in that area, and just a lot of disinvestment. And Othello and a company that he formed called 75 North, which was a Omaha-based CDC, went out and basically tried to transform in this neighborhood in a positive way for the residents by buying up land, buying up some of the problem sites, and then working with the community for 5 years as well on a vision for what it should be, and has been incredibly successful. It took 5 years to get the first phase started, which is a project called the Accelerator, which has really become a community center with Omaha. And a place where entrepreneurs can get spaces, a place where they're doing some urban agriculture with aquaponics. It's an event center. It's just a really, really cool project. And after Othello got that rolling, he did some affordable housing, some affordable townhomes. They're on to the phase 3 now, which I think is senior. So it's been really cool to see how that kind of played out. And the first time we met with Othello and he was describing his experience, I felt like he was describing what Upper Harbor was like. So we brought him on the team just as, somebody that we can ask questions to and call and just ping, how did you handle this? Or are we doing this right? Or, and so he's been, his knowledge and experience and perspective has just been invaluable in helping guide us. So, there's others, that I be, happy to talk through, but we could probably spend a while we're just talking about that.
Sure. No, that's cool. It's great information, and it's good to get a sense, and I always, when I think about this project, I remember, was it Eric with the city?
Eric Hansen. Yep.
Yeah. Eric Hansen had invited me and some other media. It's when I first met you, I believe, downtown to learn about the project. And it just stuck in my mind that Eric said, speaking on behalf of the city, we intend that the Upper Harbor project will be equity driven. It'll be an equity centered project. And I still make reference to that because I think it's the right thing to say and the right thing to do. Whether it gets done depends on all kinds of conditions and all kinds of intentions, but you have to start by stating what the possibility is. And I credit the city of Minneapolis, the mayor, and I credit your company and yours, Dana, for coming to the community publicly declaring that we are going to build this notion of diversity and equity in the creation of this opportunity in partnership with the residents of the community, the people that are there right now. So this is not a question of what the regentrification strategy is. It's a question of what the empowerment and the development and the growth opportunity is. And as such, it doesn't exclude, but simply creates a process for inclusivity. That's the way I see it. So I commend all of you for having that framework, that point of view. And I want to ask you, Dana, the same kind of question. You mentioned Denver and other cities that have the amphitheaters, but are there other visions of what entertainment should look like that you have in mind that helps you shape what you think could happen differently and better for our city in North Minneapolis?
Yeah, we really look to inspiration for amphitheaters that were also providing community programming, because I think it's really traditional to just open it for ticketed events and then close the gates and kind of let it sit there. So we really looked at models that were being utilized 200, 250 days a year, and also that were open for public park usage when not used as a ticketed event. So, I mean, Red Rocks in Denver or outside of Denver, I think is the perfect example. I mean, there's people there all the time. It's always being used. You can go at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning and people are exercising and doing yoga, or you can go, you know, on a Thursday night and they're showing a movie under the stars. We also looked at like the Levitt pavilions, which provide, you know, 50, that's where we kind of got our public programming model of 30 to 40 free shows. And everything that is live music, open mics, talent shows, etc., as well as like the Lake Harriet Bandshell, which we know is such an amenity and such an unbelievable asset to the neighborhood. So those are some of our examples, along with other riverfront properties, because there is something very unique about being on a riverfront. And additionally, this site has, you know, a riverfront to the east and railroad tracks and power lines to the west, so it is highly constrained.
Brandon and Dana, you're collecting information from the community still. You're looking for people to bring their ideas and to sort of throw out to you, and for the record, things they want to see and do and how maybe they can be partners or involved. How does that look? How does it work? And if the opportunity is still open, how do we use today's program as an invitation to people to, you know, show up with their ideas or their questions?
Yeah, we, so, you know, throughout this process, we've heard, you know, individually from community members, as well as, you know, local organizations and whatnot that had an interest in playing a role. And so what we, you know, that's through 4 or 5 years now of planning, you know, a lot of those conversations have in various ways kind of shaped and influenced this plan to a certain extent. And but now as we're starting to move hopefully to a plan approval by the city and onto the, you know, kind of implementation work in 2022, you know, we're at a point now where we need to kind of figure out who are our other partners, or who are some of these organizations that, you know, a lot of people have come to us with ideas. I want to do this, or I want to do that, or, you know, have a business plan, or are already an established company. And like we do in any project, I mean, we kind of we get to a point where it's like, okay, the planning piece is over. Now we got to figure out who's going to be the, you know, the tenants or the operators or the partners for these buildings. And so we have a community entity expression of interest process that we're about halfway through right now, and it's been open since early June on the Upper Harbor website, which I can post here in a second. But it's a place for community members or individuals, organizations to just kind of formally declare their interest in working with us on the project. And you know, we're seeking really 3 kind of primary partners. One is a community fund manager, and this would be an organization that would receive the funds. I know we didn't get into it in this, I think we did last time, but would receive the First Avenue ticket fee funds that Dana has agreed to charge on all the events that she runs. There'll be a $3 added charge for those tickets, with all of that money going into this community fund. And so we're looking for a group that can come in, receive those funds, and then distribute them into community-focused initiatives, which, you know, will be primarily focused on local programming at the CPAC, as well as, you know, arts and other things. And so, so that's kind of one focus. And then And then, we're looking for partners really on the real estate side. One could be a group that could come in and actually take ownership or partner with us on the ground floor retail spaces in the project, which are in our minds, those are the publicly accessible spaces. Those are the places where, at that eye level, that's where you're really going to get the experience of Upper Harbor. I mean, there might be people living in the building above, or whatnot, but if you're a member of the public and walking down there, or walking along the river or whatever, it's that eye level experience. And so, we would like to have a community partner that could come in with us on that, and like I said, take ownership of it and actually run it and operate it themselves, or partner with us. And that partnership could be in the form of a joint venture. It could just be in the form of a advisor to helping us make sure that we're filling those spaces with tenants that the community will want and approve, and not just the typical tenants that may go into a lot of projects. So we really want that to be a local curated experience, so that the community feels like they're seeing their friends, their relatives, whatever, in these buildings, operating these buildings. And then Dana is as well from the Community Performing Arts Center. I'll let you talk about the partner that you're seeking there too.
Yeah, we're seeking a programming partner because we know how important it is to have programming that is welcoming and appropriate and really inviting for current Northside residents. And so we are hoping and seeking and expecting to find somebody to put that programming on that can be paid for by the $3 community fee. So hopefully it shouldn't have a giant fundraising lift. But knowing that First Avenue, we're local downtown, and Northside, the bands and the experiences that Northsiders might want to have on the site is unique to the Northside. And so somebody to really plug in and program, and with all the full support of the First Avenue infrastructure and consulting and production knowledge, but that can advise or even program the site for the free and community events.
Are there people like that in the marketplace? I guess the ones that are doing their individual promotions would be the candidates, right? People like who I can't think of the names now, but there are a number of fairly well-established promoters that people know and follow. That's the kind of person you're looking for, a company?
Yeah, we're really open. An individual that, maybe, if we're looking to not open until 2023, 2024, to bring in and build the capacity and train and teach up, or an organization or a nonprofit that already has that kind of support and might be looking for space to put on programming year round. So again, like Brandon said, it's individuals, institutions, community groups, etc.
Okay, Dana, let me do what we did last week when we talked, ask you to tell your personal story again. I love people's personal stories, and yours is a wonderful story about going into your dad's business and building it out. So if you don't mind, I'd love to get again that story of how the First Avenue organization emerged and how you came into the leadership of it.
Yeah, so my dad was friends with the guy who started the club in 1970, and my dad was an accountant. He actually worked also for Flight Time and Jimmy Jam, and was their accountant for years and represented athletes and artists. Was head of the Minnesota Music Association in the late 80s. So very familiar with that, what might be considered a golden era. I still think.
What was your dad's name?
His name was Byron Frank.
Byron Frank. Okay.
And so he bought First Avenue out of bankruptcy. There was a time in mid 2004 when it fell into bankruptcy. It was, corporate rock era, and they just couldn't make it work anymore. And so my dad started operating it then, and then he had a stroke in 2009. And I was living and working in Los Angeles. I was a development executive at VH1. And so when he got sick, I flew home immediately. It was like, okay, I wonder who I'll sell the club to, Live Nation or AEG. And then as soon as I stepped inside, I remembered all the Sunday night dance parties, all the concerts, all, the best times of my life that happened in that room. And then I met with, the corporate suits and realized how can I trust you with my favorite, the best memories ever. So I just said, screw it, I'll just run it. So I started operating it. We opened and I like to say my dad had the idea for a restaurant next to the club and then got sick right when they struck ground. So first job was opening the depot, and then we got the main room kind of up and running and profitable and like situated well, and then just started growing from there.
Okay, great story. Wonderful. So who's your favorite, what's your favorite kind of music, and who are your favorite artists?
Oh, that's like asking a woman how old she is.
Don't do it. Especially, yeah, you're in the business, right? How can you say
Thanks,
that?
Al. And no, I'm not pregnant, okay?
Okay, touche. All right. Brandon, who's your favorite artist? Who do you
I have no problem answering that. I mean, I grew up primarily, I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but I think I mentioned this last time. I mean, my original goal was to own my own record label someday, and it's still a long-term goal of mine. But I've been a huge rap fan since the first time I heard Dr. Dre's The Chronic in 1992, and from there, just kind of grew. So my love of hip hop and rap music has grown. So I mean, if you want me to name my top five, I'm going to go Tupac, Mobb Deep, Nas, probably Biggie and Kanye as my top five artists. But I do listen to all music, and certainly like Nirvana and some of the kind of early 90s alternative grunge bands as well. So
That's cool. That's good. It's cool, that you're bringing that personal engagement and involvement into things that you're doing. I mean, does your preference in music influence your business? And I'm raising the question like, okay, so I'll say it this way. It's like, you're not the regular suit. And that's not to put down suits, right? It's to say that there's this picture of the corporate guys, buttoned up, locked up, walking a certain way, and they do what corporate guys do. You don't come across that way, and you come across as a kind of a mellow guy, but also a guy that's determined. And the vibe from you, Brandon, is one that is kind of there's this energy that is positive from my experience. And so how do you see yourself? And I'm suggesting that probably comes from your connection to the music in some way. I mean, I could be wrong.
Before you answer, I want to tell you that I saw your picture online because I do research before I write articles from Al's interview. And I saw the plaid shirt. And everyone else was in suit and tie. And here's this young man with this red and white plaid shirt. And I said, he's from a different genre here. And it exactly what you said. And it was from the picture and the aura that, it brought about. And I thought about that when Al said that. I said, he's different. Well, anyway, and that's a good thing, though, Brandon.
Yeah, no, you guys are making me blush here. But yes, I would say that music, especially the artists that I mentioned. I mean, I like listening. I like music that really kind of like puts me in this sort of hustler mentality. I like the early '90s rap because of Mobb Deep, for instance, Survival of the Fittest, Eye for an Eye, Nas, New York State of Mind. I mean, these songs of, they were trying to carve a name for themselves, carve a place for themselves. Yeah. And, that's what I listen to in the morning. It kind of gets me in the right mindset. Do I turn my stereo down a little bit, maybe as I'm pulling up to the office? Yeah, slightly. Maybe I keep my Spotify a little bit lower in my office. But yeah, it has certainly influenced my thinking, and yeah, I mean, if I could, I'd probably wear baggier clothes than what I have on right now. So
Listen, this has been a fun hour. I've enjoyed this conversation. Brandon, good to see you again. Dana, good to talk to you again. I've enjoyed our conversations. I look forward to working with both of you in the future as you make progress on the Upper Harbor and in the general, development of our community. Keep up the good work. Thank you for being with me today on Conversations with Al McFarlane. And for my listeners, thank you for being part of the program. Brenda, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Brenda.
And good luck to both of you.
Suffering.